Good evening, everybody. So this is the current status of my Dirk, which I did not get to wear today at the Seaside Highland Games in Ventura. The reason being is that I did the clear coat on this last night, and unfortunately this morning, because I put some tape over the ricasso of the blade to kind of protect it from getting clear coat. A mistake I will not make again in the future, because some of that goof off I used to clean off all the stickiness actually stripped off some of the lacquer, and a little bit on both sides. Not happy about that. Also got up here a little bit somewhere. Not so bad though. But in any case, I resprayed it, took it with me to the games, had it sitting up in a box, and to where the handle wasn't touching anything. And it wasn't quite, I mean, there's still a little bit of stickiness right here when I got to the games, which is an hour away from my place. And I probably sprayed this half hour or so before I actually left. So anyways, that's kind of the status there. I'm disappointed I didn't get to wear it. By the time I left, it was totally dry. By the time I left the games, it was totally dry. Like, I could have brought it back in, but it was already like too late. I was gone. But nevertheless, you can take a look at this and see that, yeah, the knotwork actually looks pretty good clear coated. This is oak from my mom's house in Watsonville, California. And it's, yeah, the grain looks nice, but it doesn't, the darkness of the grain does not actually take away from the knotwork. I was afraid that might happen, because in some cases, like, you might stain the oak, and, you know, what's going to happen is the grains end up looking lighter than all the currently light spots. Like, all those spots that are light would get a little bit darker. All those little grains would actually show up a little bit lighter sometimes. And so you end up with sort of too much contrast. This, it complements it. And I didn't use linseed oil this time because it wouldn't have looked bad, but would have looked like I oiled it. That's the only problem. I've oiled a few knife handles, and sometimes it turns out really nice. If you, like with walnut, you can do it nicely. You can resand it even after you oil it. And really the trick is to raise the grain. This one, I got a bit hasty. There's some spots that I could have like filed down a little bit better, like right here. I could have filed that a little bit nicer. But I was like thinking, oh man, my wife doesn't want me to do any of this stuff right now, and I was sick yesterday, but not as sick as on Thursday. I don't want her to think I'm just like gold bricking it. So I kind of jumped the gun in a couple ways. Not the end of the world. I could actually go ahead and file this down some more and re-clear coat it. It wouldn't be that bad. I'd probably wait a few days though. I am actually going to sand this anyway, because I don't like the fact that that looks the way it does. I kind of want to re-clear coat that, which, yeah, it looks like that actually got scuffed as well. That's not just, you know, there's a couple spots that didn't really like suck in, or it sucked up the clear coat. I didn't go heavy enough because I didn't want to make all of this look overly glossy. And this is a semi-gloss I used. But overall, it actually looks pretty good. I'm actually pretty satisfied with the way it turned out overall. I did use clear coat on the brass here. And that's why I used tape right here, because I didn't want the clear coat to... and I was using, you know, a stickier, tackier tape. I wasn't using like blue masking tape, which I should have done. I just didn't want to spend $7 for a roll at Home Depot. I already spent too much while I was there. Recently, I did some sanding yesterday on the nut and also the pommel cap to make it look nicer. I need to drill some holes and do some heart designs and do some cool stuff. The sheath, it turned out okay. It's not my favorite. To be honest, I'll probably do another sheath for the same knife in the future that looks more Jacobite. I was trying to make this look a little more quasi-Renaissance-y because I wanted to wear this today, and I was wearing my great kilt. But that's all right. I still wore my other Dirk, the one that I wore at Tony's wedding. I still got compliments on it, but there was somebody else there by the last name Duncan who... So drinking some soda there. Who did his own Dirk, which looked pretty phenomenal, actually. I mean, yeah, there's some aspects of it I would have changed, or I would have finished, because it looks like his piece is a little bit unfinished, even though it looks pretty cool. There's some things he did on his that I just haven't done on mine. He also has more of like a 3.5 finger grip instead of instead of the 3 finger, which is more period. But yeah, it's a pretty nice piece. Also, the pommel on his isn't totally tight, and historically some were not. Some actually like were a separate piece, but it maybe could have tightened on the nut. It looks like the nut was actually like cast onto the disc as if it was one piece. It was almost welded looking, but I mean, nobody welds brass like that. So it looks like it might have been cast. Any case, he had a cool looking piece. I liked it. But yeah, I actually like this one more. But I didn't get to wear it. The one I did wear is nice, and it definitely, you know, people liked it who got to see it and hold it, but it wasn't as nice as this one. This one would have been better received. Important thing is I was well enough received at the event and hung out with the Lav Badalam guys, and got to teach some kids sword fighting. Got to do a little bit of, you know, light bouting myself with synthetic broadswords, and got to train a little bit with the Apache Tomahawk and dagger. Did a little bit of that. That was cool. But anyways, that's not what this video is about. But yeah, so the sheath, that's typically how I stitch it. Yeah, so people have asked about this in the past on some of the groups that I'm on. Basically, you have the loop. It actually is, you know, it's actually straighter, but then I kind of twist it while the die is kind of setting, or while the sealer is kind of setting, because you actually want it to twist like that because of the way the belt is. I mean, otherwise, when you make it, it's like that. If you look at some of Vince Evans's work, it's like that. But it's also thinner leather that's going to twist more easily. This, I use veg tan that I had, and because I want to dye it all the same color, and that's what I got. So, but it'll still work. I just need to have the opportunity now to wear this stuff together, and one of these days that'll happen. But let me know what you think. So in addition to having to sand some of these spots again and re-clear coat it, and I have a little piece of like lint right there, and of course also, you know, punching some holes in the disc to make it look more authentic as well. I still need to add a proper edge to this thing. I mean, technically, like, that's the original edge right there. It's already like the thickness of a dime. This right here is more like the thickness, like it becomes like a thickness of a quarter right here, then it becomes like a thickness of like a nickel over here. So I need to very carefully grind some of this stuff down with an angle grinder and a flat sanding disc with a bucket of water so I don't untemper it. But I'm liking it overall. It looks pretty cool, and it is looking more authentic than I originally carved. Oh yeah, and you see little spots right here. That might be like overspray over. Well, I sprayed over a part that I didn't have a chance to resand. I'm now gonna have to sand that. I'm gonna try not to resand any of this because I really like the way the knots look as they are. But I really should clear coat some more of this to make it kind of match the rest of this. But I was being very careful because I don't want to do anything crazy to this. But because of how nice the brass looks with the clear coat on it, I might go ahead and do the same thing to this guy once I get all the holes punched, and I might just, you know, spray it as is, and just, you know, if I have to remove the pommel cap at some point, I'll be careful, take a razor blade in here and just kind of very carefully cut the clear coat. But we'll see. The fact that there's a gap there, which historically happened a lot, by the way, that might be to my benefit when it comes to spraying this stuff. So I'm not going to really count that as a flaw. And to be honest, historical Dirks didn't always have the most perfectly symmetrical form. I realize that when looking at this, the blade does kind of go that way a little bit. And then right here, let's see, is it more obvious on the side? Yeah, it kind of like goes that way a little bit. So it's like it's going that way, and then it's going that way. That happened on historical pieces. So I'm not going to let myself feel too bad about that. I still love this piece very much. And I look forward to doing more stuff like this. This is a lot of extra work. So I use my my wood carving knives to get the shape of the knots. I used a razor blade to carve the lines, which I typically was using to carve everything. on my other pieces, which again, like I'm still going to use a razor blade sometimes, but now that I'm moving towards proper wood carving blades, I'm going to kind of go in that direction. Yeah, you can see how like there's like this obviously wasn't turned with a wood lathe. Like I need to actually trace a line and carve some more of that off without making this into a 3.5 finger grip. It's still pretty nice the way that it is. I love it. It's pretty cool. So let me know what you guys think, and I will talk to you next time.